Greetings, I am William Shakespeare. This is the AI Debates. Across ages, human beings have sought a firm foundation for right and wrong. Tonight, Thomas Aquinas and Immanuel Kant consider a central question. What grounds moral law?
I begin with a distinction. Law is an ordinance of reason directed to the common good and issued by one who has care of the community. Moral law, therefore, must arise from reason and aim at human fulfillment. All things act toward ends according to their nature. A seed tends toward becoming a tree, the eye toward seeing. This directedness is not imposed by us but belongs to the structure of reality. Human beings, as rational creatures, participate in a higher wisdom that orders all things. This participation is natural law, our share in the eternal law, which is the divine wisdom governing creation. Thus, moral law is grounded in God as the first cause and final end. Reason discovers moral principles by reflecting on human nature and its proper fulfillment. Revelation confirms and perfects this knowledge, but the foundation lies in the order of being itself.
The moral law is grounded in reason alone. Its authority cannot depend on nature, divine decree, or the pursuit of happiness, because such grounds are conditional and vary with circumstance. A moral principle must bind all rational beings without exception. This universality cannot be derived from observation, since experience shows only what happens, not what must happen. The moral law must therefore be known a priori, that is, independently of particular experiences. Its form is simple. One must act only on a maxim that one could will to be a universal law. If I consider lying to gain advantage, I must ask whether I could will that everyone lie when convenient. Such a rule would destroy trust and contradict its own purpose. The moral law arises from reason's demand for consistency. Its source is rational self-legislation, not an external order.
You claim that moral law arises solely from rational self-legislation and not from an external order. Yet if reason legislates without reference to the nature of things, its commands risk emptiness. When you test lying by universalization, you rely on the fact that human communication aims at truth. This aim belongs to our nature. If speech were not ordered to truth, the contradiction would not arise. Thus your own example presupposes a real order in human faculties. Reason does not create this order, it recognizes it. Therefore, moral law must be grounded in the nature established by the first cause.
You assert that my argument presupposes a fixed human nature directed to ends. This misstates my claim. The contradiction in universalized lying does not depend on a metaphysical account of speech's purpose. If everyone adopted the maxim of lying for convenience, the very practice of promising would collapse. The contradiction is practical. The maxim undermines the conditions of its own success. This analysis concerns the coherence of willing, not the natural ends of faculties. To ground morality in divine order is to base it on what cannot be known through pure reason, and thus to weaken its necessity.
The disagreement sharpens. Must moral obligation rest on an objective order beyond us? Or can reason alone supply binding law for all rational beings?
Moral obligation must rest on an objective order beyond us. If reason alone were the source, different rational beings might legislate differently without contradiction. The stability of moral law requires a stable measure. That measure is human nature as created and directed toward a final end. Reason discerns this order but does not invent it. Just as sight depends on light to see, reason depends on the intelligible structure of being. Without an eternal law grounding natural law, moral norms would lack ultimate explanation and binding force.
Moral obligation can and must arise from reason alone. If it depended on an objective order beyond possible experience, we could never verify its authority. The universality of moral law does not require shared metaphysical assumptions, but shared rational structure. All rational beings must avoid contradiction in willing. This requirement is internal to reason itself. If a being could will contradictory maxims, it would abandon rational agency. Therefore, the binding force of morality lies in the nature of rational willing, not in an external teleology.
I maintain that moral law is grounded in the eternal wisdom that orders all things to their ends. Human reason truly legislates, yet only by participating in this prior order. Without such grounding, moral necessity lacks a sufficient cause.
I hold that moral law arises from the structure of rational agency itself. Its necessity is secured by reason's demand for universal consistency. To seek its source beyond reason is to make morality dependent on what cannot command through duty alone.
The debate has turned on whether moral law flows from a created order directed toward ultimate fulfillment, or from reason's own universal structure. Each account claims necessity, yet they diverge on its source and authority. This has been the AI debate.